On Halloween night in 2001, Cindy Song, a 21-year-old South Korean student at Pennsylvania State University, had no idea this celebration would be her last. Cindy, who was studying integrative arts, was known by her friends for being bubbly, optimistic, and dedicated to her studies. She'd spent her Halloween night at a club with friends, donning a playful bunny costume complete with ears, a tail, and pink suspenders. She was having a good time, laughing and enjoying the party atmosphere. By around 2 a.m., Cindy and her friends decided to grab a bite at a local diner, enjoying one last meal together before heading home. Afterward, Cindy's friends dropped her off at her apartment in State College, Pennsylvania, but that was the last time anyone saw her. As the hours turned into days, and Cindy's friends realized they hadn't heard from her, concern grew. Her family, who lived far away in South Korea, had no contact with her either. Cindy had left behind essential items in her apartment, like her phone and her backpack, which was unusual because she wasn't the type to vanish without informing anyone. Only Cindy's keys and purse were missing, suggesting she may have stepped out briefly. Police found her apartment door locked from the outside, and no signs of struggle, adding to the mystery and leaving investigators without clear leads. Over time, the investigation pointed to multiple theories. Some believed Cindy had decided to go for a walk after being dropped off. Others speculated that she may have been lured by someone she trusted, or that an opportunistic predator had approached her while she was outside. Police canvassed the area, but no witnesses could recall seeing her that night, leaving them with no concrete leads. Months later, a break seemed to come when a jailhouse informant claimed Cindy might have been kidnapped by a group involved in illegal activities. According to his story, Cindy had been taken and killed by a criminal associate in the area who had allegedly disposed of her body. Authorities investigated, but nothing came of the lead, leaving Cindy's friends and family without answers. Over the years, further investigation and new leads surfaced, with detectives considering potential links between Cindy's case and other missing persons. Despite these efforts, no arrests were made. For Cindy's family, who had flown in from South Korea to assist with the search, it was devastating. Her mother held on to hope for years that Cindy might return, but eventually, as the years passed, Cindy's disappearance remained unsolved. To this day, Cindy's story stands as one of Halloween's darkest mysteries, a case haunted by unanswered questions. Her friends and family hold out hope that one day they may find closure. For those who remember Cindy Song, Halloween is not only a time for fun, but also a solemn reminder of a young woman who vanished on a night filled with excitement, leaving only memories and an unsolved mystery in her wake. The small, affluent neighborhood of Bellhaven, Greenwich, Connecticut, was rocked by a horrific crime on Halloween night in 1975. 15-year-old Martha Moxley had plans that night to attend a party at her friend's house, just a few blocks away. Known as a friendly and vivacious girl with a kind spirit, Martha was loved by everyone around her. As she laughed and mingled with friends, no one suspected this ordinary evening would end in tragedy. She was last seen around 9:30 p.m., but when she failed to return home, her mother grew worried. The next morning, on November 1st, a gruesome discovery was made in the Moxley family's backyard. Martha's body lay under a large tree, covered in brutal wounds from a golf club. The initial investigation revealed that Martha had been attacked with a 6-iron golf club so violently that the club had shattered during the assault. The blunt force trauma alone would have been fatal, but she had also been stabbed with the broken handle. The attack was shocking, particularly in such a quiet, secure community where violent crime was almost unheard of. Authorities believed her murder had occurred between 9:30 and 10 p.m., just minutes after she was last seen alive. But, as the investigation unfolded, finding her killer became a complex, tangled puzzle. Suspicion soon fell on the Skakel family, who lived near the Moxleys. Michael Skakel, 15 at the time, and his older brother, Thomas, 17, were known to have spent time with Martha that night. The Skakels were relatives of the Kennedy family, which brought a great deal of media attention to the case. Thomas initially admitted to spending time with Martha that evening, but his story changed multiple times under questioning. Michael, too, was evasive when asked about his whereabouts that night, creating even more suspicion. However, with no physical evidence linking them directly to the crime, the case began to stall. The Moxley case turned cold for over 2 decades, haunting the town of Greenwich and captivating true crime enthusiasts across the country. Finally, in the 1990s, advances in forensic science and renewed interest in the case led to its reopening. Investigators began to piece together new evidence, focusing again on Michael Skakel, who had been known to confess to the murder under odd circumstances. Several witnesses came forward, claiming Michael had boasted about the murder, allegedly saying, "I'm going to get away with murder because I'm a Kennedy." This statement, though chilling, was circumstantial. In 2002, Michael Skakel was finally arrested and convicted of Martha Moxley's murder, more than 25 years after the crime. He was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. However, the story didn't end there. Skakel's legal team filed multiple appeals, leading to a controversial 2013 decision to overturn his conviction. In 2018, prosecutors decided against retrying him, meaning the case remains legally unresolved, and the conviction was vacated. The tragic murder of Martha Moxley on Halloween night has left an indelible scar on the Moxley family and the community. For the Moxleys, there remains a lingering frustration with the justice system, feeling that Martha's killer might still walk free. Each Halloween, her memory is honored, with her story highlighting the darkness that can lie behind closed doors, even in the most unexpected places. Halloween, 1974, marked a tragic event in Pasadena, Texas, that forever changed the way parents view trick-or-treating. Ronald Clark O'Brien, who would later be infamously known as the Candyman, committed a shocking crime that took the life of his own son, Timothy, in one of the most sinister Halloween-related murders in U.S. history. This story introduced a chilling aspect to Halloween lore and created a fear that lingers in the tradition to this day. On Halloween night, O'Brien took his 2 children, Timothy and Elizabeth, along with a friend's child, out to collect candy in their neighborhood. It was a typical Halloween scene, with kids eagerly running from door to door in costume, their excitement filling the air. They stopped at a house where no one seemed to be home, and the children quickly moved on. However, O'Brien stayed back and eventually returned with 5 large pixie sticks, claiming the house's occupants had eventually answered the door and given him the candy. He handed the pixie sticks to the children, 1 for each of them, and a few for other children in the neighborhood, unaware of the horrifying secret these treats held. Later that evening, at home, Timothy begged to eat one of his pixie sticks before bed. Ronald watched as his son tore open the treat and tasted the powder inside. Immediately, Timothy complained that it was bitter. His father offered him a glass of Kool-Aid to wash down the taste. Moments later, Timothy started convulsing and foaming at the mouth. Horrified, Ronald and his wife rushed him to the hospital, but Timothy died en route, just an hour after consuming the poisoned candy. His death sent shockwaves through the community, prompting fears of tainted Halloween candy. The police launched an immediate investigation, initially fearing a potential mass poisoning incident. Every piece of candy Timothy had collected was analyzed, and the pixie sticks was found to be filled with a lethal dose of cyanide. As investigators delved deeper, they began to suspect Ronald O'Brien himself, especially after learning he had recently taken out life insurance policies on his children. It was revealed that Ronald had been struggling with debt and saw the policies as a way to solve his financial woes. Further investigation uncovered that O'Brien had attempted to poison more than just his son. He had given out the tainted pixie sticks to several other children, but fortunately, none of them had consumed the deadly treats. When police confronted Ronald with this evidence, he denied involvement, even pleading for his innocence in front of the press and portraying himself as a grieving father. However, the overwhelming evidence pointed to him as the mastermind behind his son's tragic death. Ronald Clark O'Brien was arrested, tried, and eventually convicted of capital murder in 1975. Dubbed the Candy Man, he was sentenced to death and executed by lethal injection in 1984. To this day, his crime is considered one of the most chilling betrayals of parental trust, as he used a night of innocent fun to carry out a heinous act. O'Brien's actions left an indelible mark on Halloween, forever embedding the fear of tampered candy in the minds of parents across America. For many families, Ronald O'Brien's crime became the root of the urban legend about poisoned Halloween candy, creating a fear that remains strong to this day. As Halloween approaches each year, parents remind children to be cautious, forever haunted by the knowledge that a father could use candy, the ultimate symbol of Halloween innocence, as a tool for such a devastating act. In 1998, Karl Jackson, a 21-year-old man from the Bronx, planned for a simple Halloween night. He would pick up his girlfriend's young son from a party and then drive him home. Karl, a quiet, responsible young man, generally avoided any Halloween revelry. He wasn't one for costumes, tricks, or treats. He simply wanted to enjoy a peaceful evening. Little did he know, this Halloween night would end in a tragedy that would become one of New York's most senseless holiday murders. Karl and his girlfriend's son were driving through the Bronx when they came upon a group of local teens who were indulging in Halloween pranks, including the classic, yet sometimes dangerous trick of throwing eggs at passing cars. When Karl's car was pelted with eggs, he pulled over, frustrated with the reckless behavior that could have caused an accident. He approached the teens to confront them, hoping a few stern words would encourage them to move along. As Karl returned to his car, his brief confrontation seemed to have made an impression. The pranksters scattered, seemingly giving up on their mischief. However, one of the teens didn't take kindly to being called out. In an act of senseless retaliation, he walked up to Karl just as he was getting back into his vehicle and, without hesitation, pulled out a gun. In an instant, a single bullet was fired, and Karl was shot in the head, ending his life on the spot. The Bronx neighborhood was shocked and devastated. To lose a young man over something as trivial as Halloween pranks was unfathomable. The media quickly picked up the story, casting a somber light on what many people view as a fun holiday. Karl's mother, visibly heartbroken, described her son as a good, hard-working man with a bright future. He had worked as a data entry clerk at Morgan Stanley and was well liked by colleagues and family alike. Losing him to a prank gone horribly wrong left the family grappling with a grief that would never fully heal. In the days that followed, police arrested the shooter, a teenager with a history of run-ins with the law. During questioning, he showed little remorse, and the senselessness of the crime weighed heavily on the community. The public outcry over Karl's murder highlighted the dark side of Halloween, when pranks and mischievous antics crossed the line into violence. His tragic death underscored a growing concern about youth violence, and it prompted calls for stricter gun control and better education on conflict resolution. For Karl's family, Halloween would never be the same. His mother couldn't bear to see other people celebrate the holiday without remembering her son's fate, haunted by the fact that he was taken from them over a childish prank. On Halloween night in 2002, Christopher Jenkins, a 21-year-old student at the University of Minnesota, went out with friends to celebrate. Dressed in a Native American costume, he headed to a popular Minneapolis bar. However, events took a troubling turn when Jenkins was ejected from the bar. His friends left, unaware that he was now stranded without his phone, wallet, or jacket in the chilly October weather. When Jenkins didn't return home, his family grew increasingly concerned. Despite extensive search efforts, weeks turned into months without any sign of him. Then, in February 2003, a grim discovery was made. Jenkins's body was found in the Mississippi River, still in his Halloween costume. Authorities initially ruled his death an accidental drowning, suggesting he may have stumbled into the water while intoxicated. However, Jenkins's family suspected foul play, believing he wouldn't have wandered into the river alone. They pressured investigators to take a closer look. Eventually, the Minneapolis police reclassified his death as a homicide, though evidence to support this theory remained scarce. Rumors circulated about Jenkins possibly being a victim of the alleged smiley face killer theory, which links several drownings of college-aged men across the Midwest to a potential serial killer or killers. However, no conclusive proof was found. The mystery of Christopher Jenkins's death remains unsolved, and his story has become a part of local legend, highlighting the potential dangers that can lie beneath Halloween festivities. Each October, his case resurfaces as family, friends, and the community remember Christopher, using his story to raise awareness about safety, especially for young adults celebrating Halloween. On Halloween night in 1973, 9-year-old Lisa French from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, set out on a solo trick-or-treating adventure around her neighborhood. Lisa, dressed as a hobo, happily knocked on doors for candy in her familiar area. Her parents expected her to return home by curfew, but as the night wore on, their concern grew into panic when Lisa failed to appear. The entire community joined in an urgent search, hoping Lisa had only wandered off or become lost. However, their worst fears were confirmed a few days later when her body was discovered in a field outside town. Investigators quickly zeroed in on Gerald Turner, one of Lisa's neighbors, who had allowed her into his home under the guise of handing out candy. Tragically, Turner had assaulted and murdered her before disposing of her body. The discovery shocked and devastated Lisa's family and cast a shadow of fear over Fond du Lac, marking a heartbreaking change in the town's Halloween traditions. Turner was eventually convicted of Lisa's murder, and her tragic story had a lasting impact on Halloween safety practices across the country. Communities became more aware of the risks children could face while trick-or-treating alone, sparking a wave of changes that encouraged safer alternatives. Parents began accompanying their children. Neighborhood watch programs intensified during Halloween, and organized events, such as mall trick-or-treating, gained popularity as safe alternatives. Lisa French's story is a heartbreaking reminder of the potential dangers that lurk even in seemingly safe neighborhoods, forever changing Halloween traditions to focus on child safety. Today, her legacy lives on through the vigilance parents maintain while trick-or-treating, emphasizing the importance of community safety on Halloween.